Assalamu alaikum. Okay.
Alaikum salam. Sorry
Okay,
for taking
so
some time. I think,
it's fine. It's fine. So we'll start today. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Shirazat, and I'm the Vice President of SP Bahrain Students Chapter. Well, the point of having this organization is to bridge gaps between the work life and the student life. We promised you last time in our first webinar that we'll be having an interactive sessions with professionals in the oil and gas industry. So today we are joined by Mr. Badr Al-Buquaishi. He is the head of production system modeling at Tatweer Petroleum. Assalamu alaikum.
alaikum salam. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys today.
Thank you. Well, we thank you so much for accepting our invitation and joining us here. And so we'll start off with our session for today. Well, first thing is that, can you walk us through your educational and professional life? Like, when did you graduated and what have you been doing since then?
Of course, of course. First of all, congratulations on your chapter. I hope this
Thank
is
you.
one of many activities in the future. We will definitely support as required.
Sure.
I've graduated from the University of Bahrain in January 2013. I've always had an interest for the oil and gas industry. Hence, I've applied for Tatweer and other service companies in the upstream. Fortunately, I was looking for a job when oil price was around $100 per barrel. Tatweer was 3 years old at that time and had 4 drilling rigs working simultaneously nonstop, executing several enhanced oil recovery pilots, and they were craving for recruitment. I remember staying at home for a couple of months only before my first interview. And during those 2 months, I was working with my colleague Ahmed Buchiri and Dr. Shakir on publishing a paper on the work we did for our senior project. To be frank, I didn't have much time to rest. Then in no time, I joined Tatweer as production modeling engineer. I've worked on oil production optimization, production systems, debottlenecking, designing artificial lift systems for a couple of years. Then in 2015, I started working on gas field development planning, gas management, and gas systems optimization. And then 2019, I remember I was appointed as lead of oil production, leading a team who are responsible for maximizing oil production and optimization. We were focusing on quick wins and immediate oil gain to meet Tatweer's strategic objectives and Bahrain energy objectives. Then in 2019, I was appointed as head of production system modeling, which is the position I'm currently holding.
Amazing, amazing. Well, going back to your time, to your life before being a student in UOB, how did you choose chemical engineering? Was it was it a thing that you wanted since childhood, or what exactly? Like, what motivated you into choosing this field?
To be honest with you, since I was a little kid, looking at drilling rigs whenever I go camping with the family, passing by the refinery at night, and looking at the plants and units when the night lighting's on. For me, the view was mesmerizing. Call me weird, but I love the smell of fuel, especially in the petrol station. I think you
Everyone,
do as well.
exactly. Yeah.
Then when I grew up, I started to understand how dependent we are as a nation on the oil and gas industry, especially in this region. And somehow I wanted to be part of this sector. I wanted to be an effective contributor to my country. I wanted to have a significant impact on shaping the future energy in Bahrain. And that's what basically motivated me to pursue this career.
Amazing, amazing. Now, after you chose chemical engineering, how was life as a student? Like, what were the obstacles you faced as a student? And I'll remind you that I don't mean to ask your obstacle, but what the reason that I'm asking this question is that we can know as students that it's fine to have ups and downs. It's okay because at the end of the day, what matters is your dedication and your hard work. So, how was your student life and what were the obstacles that you faced as a student?
You're right. You're right. So it was a big paradigm shift from high school to university. And in the beginning of my life as a university student, attending lectures for the first time, especially lectures related to chemical engineering courses,
Yes.
I knew that I had to do a lot of reading on my own. And I think that's the number one challenge any student should embrace. In high school, the expectation is that teachers will do a lot of teaching and spoon feed information. Then when students go home, all they need to do is to revise whatever they've been taught in the semester. And that's not the case, to be honest, in university. The students have to go through a lot of reading, a lot of research as a follow-up to every lecture. I think one of the main challenges, which I think is universal to many students, we as students with zero practical experience, especially in the beginning, find it very difficult to imagine chemical engineering processes. For example, what goes on inside the heat exchanger? What goes on inside the absorber column? And how does the reactor work? For us, it's just a vessel. Let's consider civil engineering, for example. They can look at buildings all day long. Architecture, they can look at designs and everything. But for us, we had to understand what goes inside the plants, the refineries, and the downstream and midstream businesses. But fortunately, and thank God for YouTube, you can find all the animations that explain how things work in reality, and videos that clarifies the physics and fundamentals behind each component. But a humble advice to you, I think, do not get distracted by the videos suggested by YouTube. Football match highlights and movie trailers on the side.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I think last but not least, I think reporting was a bit of challenge to me, especially the first couple of reports. I still remember that I had to submit or to resubmit my first report several times until it met my professor expectation.
Yes.
I think the fourth version was accepted eventually. And I remember that there was a big difference between the first and second version submitted. I had to change a lot of things to meet expectation. But then I still had to resubmit after the third version because of a very minor and I would say silly matter. But thinking of it today, I would definitely ask my younger version of myself to repeat it. I guess as you grow older, your standards and expectations elevates.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's in a nutshell.
Thank you. Well, when you started working, like for example, as you said, when we start working, it is totally different from the university life. Our senior doctors and our senior students, they have been telling us that when you start working as an industries, it is different. It is so different to what you imagine it. So I want to know, when you started working, how did you find the work environment? Did it meet your expectations or was it totally different?
Well, upstream business is very interesting. I remember when I joined Tatweer in 2013. The work environment in a joint venture company like Tatweer with multiple shareholders and multinational employees is absolutely great. I was surrounded by experienced professionals from different parts of the world that are willing to share their experience and load you with information and knowledge on different matters about the oil and gas industry. It was way better than what I expected, to be honest. In fact, I was fortunate to shadow such individuals in the beginning of my career, which definitely helped me to learn and progress so quickly and so fast. I had access to massive knowledge and experience. I remember during each task and project I had to work on, I went out of my office and cubicle and asked so many questions to different professionals, and sometimes the same question to different people, just to build my experience using different point of views and different know-how. I was able to build my own perspective on real life challenges and problems using those perspectives. So my advice to everyone is do not hesitate to ask. Even if you think that it might sound, I don't want to say this word, but stupid. Asking for something you do not know is a new information to you. Asking for something you already know is looking for different perspective. So in work in general, you'll be hustling and looking at the know-how. You've got the fundamentals, you've got the physics from university, but still you would require a big time assessment to grow your soft skills and the know-how to execute the projects and tasks.
Well, now the next question would be, give us a brief about the upstream industry or the upstream industry in Bahrain. Like, what does it comprises of? We want to know like everything.
All right. So the upstream business is basically extracting oil and gas from the ground. And the industrial business in general is a dynamic business. Every day is different. Nothing is routine, especially for engineers. Challenges and issues arises constantly, and there is always a room for improvement. Basically, your reactor is underground, and you're dealing with Mother Nature. You think you know your field very well, but every day it proves you wrong. And that's what keeps it interesting, to be honest. The satisfaction with overcoming challenges every day is overwhelming. With the current position, I currently look for two different teams. The first team are responsible for developing a major gas reservoir in the Bahrain field, Khuf Reservoir. It's a major gas layer which contains non-associated gas. And we look at improving gas systems and networks in the field and beyond the field as well, in midstream. Overseeing gas projects from drilling wells, conventionally or trying unconventional technology, all the way down to operations and distribution. The second team is responsible for assessing gas demand requirement in the Kingdom of Bahrain. We're basically responsible for gas sales. So all the gas which is produced from the Bahrain field is being sold internally in Bahrain. So we articulate plans to sustain gas supply in the future to make sure we meet domestic gas demand, to meet electricity and water production for Bahrain, and we meet industrial gas requirement to make sure the industries continue working, producing benefits for the region.
Amazing. And also, how is this upstream industry connected to other oil and gas sector? For example, the midstream and the downstream. How do you think they're connected? They all are connected to each other.
In the upstream, we produce raw material. We produce raw crude oil, and gas. Whether it's associated gas, it's associated with oil production, or non-associated gas, which comes alone. Now, taking that gas or oil to a customer, for example, Tatweer sells oil to Babco refinery. Babco is the downstream, takes the crude oil, distill the crude oil, transforms the crude oil into products, diesel, naphtha, kerosene, lube oil, we can name it. And then you've got the other element, the associated gas, which comes with the oil. Associated gas is rich with fluids and liquids. So we send it to midstream industry, which is in Bahrain, Bana Gas. And Bana Gas, they extract LPG fuel from the associated gas. And so that's midstream, basically, taking a gas, associated gas, and extracting liquids from associated gas in the form of LPG, butane, propane, bentane, or even naphtha. Now we're ended with the non-associated gas, which is the natural gas for power generation, water generation, or even some industry consider it as a raw material to produce ammonia, for example, like GPIC. Now, taking that gas from Tatweer to other customer in the downstream business or petrochemicals is midstream as well. So the piping for distribution of oil or distribution of gas from the upstream business to downstream business is midstream business. That's in general.
Amazing. Well, if you could go back, now this is a question from every student. Now, mashallah, you have like over 7 years of experience. If you could go back in time to your university life and you could like advise something and you could change something in yourself, what would it be?
I would definitely include more diverse courses in the curriculum.
Yeah.
In my modest experience, I've seen chemical engineers working for different sectors in Bahrain and outside of Bahrain as well. In addition to downstream industry, which is the bread and butter for chemical engineers, I've seen others serving in different parts of the upstream industry, for example, drilling operations, and the midstream industry, gas and gas distribution, and even in business sector, banking, investment banking. I'm aware that the Department of Chemical Engineering and the University of Bahrain are working on having different tracks for chemical engineering discipline, which is, in my opinion, is a very good thing. But I would also like to see more use of software in the courses. For example, in addition to Aspen Package and HYSYS, it would be great, for example, to use PipeSim and Fluid Dynamics course, or use Visual Basics and Microsoft Excel macros alongside with MATLAB. Because in real life, chemical engineers are going to spend a lot of time using software instead of hand calculations. And since we are in the fourth industrial revolution, it would be great also to have a flavor of the application of artificial intelligence in the industry.
Yes.
I know Dr. Mohammed bin Shams will definitely like this.
He actually taught this last semester, so we're going there. Yeah.
I think finally, maybe a bit more application of economics, because believe me, once you start working, it will be all about money and economics, and not about the science anymore. You might propose an outstanding solution, environmentally clean, technically innovative, but if it doesn't generate enough money, then there is no use of the solution. Probably would also contribute on activities that will enhance my soft skills, because in work environment, you'll be dealing with outsiders, with companies from outside of Bahrain, project team, APC contractors. You would need those soft skills to bridge the gap between your thinking and the opposite professionals.
Yes. Well, we have a question. Well, it came into my mind as well, and we have a question from our viewer that for engaging in petroleum engineering, do we need to have a background in petroleum engineering, or is it okay that we can have a chemical engineering background and then we can work in a petroleum engineering sector? Like, what is the difference, or do they come hand to hand, basically?
Well, to be honest, apart from the geology aspect and the science of rocks, because petroleum engineers are, dealing with rocks all the time, it's pretty much the same. For example, in chemical engineering, we use correlation equations for flow in pipes. And petroleum engineering, we use correlations for fluid flow and rocks, more or less the same. And chemical engineering, we assess and evaluate the heat transfer effect between different fluids and different mediums in a heat exchanger. In petroleum engineering, we study the heat transfer effect between the steam injected, for example, in the ground, and the heavy oil as part of enhanced oil recovery. The same equations, the same physics, different mediums, different parts of the world. That's above ground, and that's subsurface, underground. In chemical engineering, we study the distillation of crude in a distillation column. And petroleum engineering, we extract oil trapped in a gas cap using steam injection, which is similar to a distillation concept. So in my opinion, the fundamentals and physics of fluid mechanics, mass diffusion, and heat transfer are all the same. All what we need to do is to reshape our understanding and reapply the physics on different systems.
Well, one question I would say that from your experience and everything, what advice would you give to us chemical engineering students as, like, for example, the ones that just entered the chemical engineering? What advice would you give them?
So chemical engineering as a discipline will provide you with the essential, I would say, academic foundation and scientific tools to tackle industry-related challenges, to provide solutions to well-known, I would say, or even reoccurring problems. My modest opinion, that's not enough, especially in this era. Chemical engineers must widen their perspective. We have to be more innovative and think outside the box. We need to provide solutions, for example, for carbon capturing, and try to reduce pollution in the most economical way possible. We need to provide clean water in the cheapest way possible, especially in this region. We need to develop a concept and baseline for the use of, let's say, renewable energy. We're depending purely on fossil fuels. And we need to look at artificial intelligence, for example, more seriously, and let it take over the repetitive tasks so that we have more time to look at real problems. My honest advice to you and to my colleagues is do not be the conventional engineer. Look at today's problems more seriously. Try to educate yourselves in these fields and try to provide innovative solutions that would affect us and help us to better shape our future.
The last thing, yeah, with your environment, when you talked about environment, I also like there is small research that we are actually affected with this air quality thing a lot. Like we are actually releasing harmful effluents, and it is actually a downfall. So what you said is definitely right, that we should come up with innovative ideas that could help us in tackling all of these problems in a less costly way, because we don't want to spend a lot of the money on these things. We want to spend it perfectly and smartly, basically.
Yeah, you're totally right. You know, once you start working with a company, you'll be latched and stuck to provide solutions to meet the company's objective, to meet the shareholders' objectives, and the mission and vision of your company. So my advice to students is to really help those industries to find solutions, because we never have had enough time to look at, for example, how to capture carbon in the most efficient way. You know, part of enhanced oil recovery, we would like to use carbon to maximize oil production and maximize oil reserves in the future. The easiest way is to get the carbon that we were producing because of upstream, midstream, or even downstream processes, and then capture it and re-inject it into the ground and reservoir to maximize oil and gas production. So these type of challenges that we face in this era, and I think it will be beneficial and opportunity for students to look at.
Well, the next question is not just my question, it is from all of our students. What is important for job applications and interviews? Like, what exactly matters while they select you as an engineer?
So apart from your university certificate, I think you need to focus on your soft skills. You need to have great presentation skills, and then you need to develop your skills and using softwares. For example, in chemical engineering, we've got HYSYS, Aspen Package, PipeSim, Unisim. And in petroleum engineering, we've got the Petroleum experts packages and reservoir simulators. So I think students should spend some time, especially during the university period, learning how to use those softwares more efficiently. It will be a very added value, a big added value to your CV while applying for a job. Understanding economics, understanding the language of economics as well. Sometimes we like to provide ideas, solutions, but we never think of is it feasible to do it? What are the challenges? And even I think the new sciences and artificial intelligence, optimization, regression, all that stuff, computing systems, students need to focus on. Because in this era, we are transforming from the conventional way of doing and executing projects and work into coding, automating everything, automating surveillance, automating optimization. So you would require to develop a code, to develop a language to make sure that the computers and the correlations and the softwares start working on their own. So basically, I think students and engineers should focus on these topics.
Well, we have one more question that says that what kind of challenges a chemical engineer would face at the beginning of their career?
In the upstream or in general?
In the upstream, yes, in the upstream.
I think reshaping the way they think, because during the four or 5 years in the university, we'll always be talking about absorber columns, reactors, plants, units, desulfurization. But when you upstream, you'll be talking about drilling, oil wells, gas wells, tubings, well manifolds, water treatment, how to separate oil from water, how to break the emulsion. And in general, and in the end, it's the same equations, correlations. You can find most of the equations in the same books that you're studying at the moment. But the reshaping of the way we think and applying the same equation on different systems, I think that would be a challenge in the beginning. But once you start understanding how to use and apply your sciences, you'll smoothly cope with the work with no problems.
Well, guys, if you have any questions, just send them soon. We'll wait for like 2 minutes, and then we'll conclude our session. Well, I guess there will be very less questions because, well, the way you spoke, I think you answered all of their questions already. So I'm hoping, okay, I have a question now. Well, Bahrain basin?
Any what?
Any idea about the Khalij al-Bahrain basin? I actually don't.
So that's the recently discovered unconventional oil reservoir. It's a light oil reservoir. The exploration team in Tatweer Petroleum are focusing on appraising the field, the offshore field, before developing long-term field development plans. The challenge now with the COVID-19 and oil price going down, studying unconventional offshore oil reservoir, tight reservoir, will be very difficult in terms of funding. Currently, we are at the appraisal stage. It's too early to decide on the future. But hopefully we were trying to overcome the challenges and optimize the appraising cost using technologies that can be applied onshore. It's very too early to judge, to be honest, but I'm very optimistic, and I think within 3 to 5 years from now, we should hear good news from this field.
Inshallah. Well, we have one more question that says that once you graduate as a chemical engineer, what is closer to you as in discipline? Is it is it upstream or the downstream?
The downstream is the bread and butter of chemical engineers, for
exactly.
chemical engineers. So the downstream, whatever you've been studying in the university, it's basically downstream, either refining or petrochemical processes. So there is a bit of difference, I would say, in upstream, but not big difference. Chemical engineers, I would say they are universal engineers. They can fit wherever they can.
Well, we have one more question that says, is the oil field promising for engineers, or should engineers focus more on renewable energy?
On the long term?
Yes.
In the long term, renewable will have a major contribution to energy supply in the world and in the region. So definitely renewable energy will be the place where chemical engineers in the future focusing their efforts and try to invest more time there. But in the medium term, I would say chemical engineers can always be considered as energy engineers. They can always start with oil and gas and then transfer to hydrogen fuel, solar fuel, into renewables. I don't see why not starting in the upstream. And but if you always find renewable energy as more interesting to you, I would definitely recommend that as well, because the whole world is transforming from the conventional fossil fuels. We started from coal early 19th century, and then into oil. Now we are more into gas. Then we might transfer into hydrogen. We'll try to remove the carbon from natural gas to be cleaner. Then from hydrogen, I can see solar systems there, fuel cell, and more into renewable energy. But I think you can always start with oil and gas, since the business at the moment is at its peak.
Well, the last question that we'll take for today is that do females have scope in the petroleum field?
Of course,
Yes.
we don't distinguish between males and females in the upstream business. Engineers are engineers. They can fit anywhere, to be honest. I've got so many colleagues, female colleagues that are petroleum engineers, and I've got chemical engineers that are working in Tatweer as process engineers as well. They can fit everywhere.
So, guys, that concludes our interactive session for today. I thank you so much on behalf of me and my officers and our president, Mr. Hussein. I would thank you so much for taking your time off from your hectic schedule and giving it to us, and we benefit a lot from it. And mashallah, you speak so well, and good luck to you for the future. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and my honor for having me today. I'll be supporting you guys whenever required. I think you've got my contact, Shiraz. Yeah, you can contact me anytime.
Thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for attending our interactive session. We'll be seeing you soon tomorrow at the same time at 7 p.m. We'll be having an interview with the downstream industry with Syed Abdullah. And see you soon, inshallah, tomorrow. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Take care.